Good afternoon. I am Mr. Boon. Today we will be we're going to be doing something a little bit differently. We're going to do front of the house service, okay? As you can see, I have a table set up here for 2 guests, and we're going to be talking about proper setting of the table. The type of restaurant that we are demonstrating today is called fast casual. All right, so as you can see, this is a diagram of what a proper place setting should look like, okay? We have the napkin on the left, the fork is on the left, the knife and the spoon go on the right-hand side, all right? Our coffee cup and our water glass is on the right-hand side. The coffee cup handle should be at approximately 4 o'clock. So if you think about a clock, this is approximately 4 o'clock, as this would be 6, so forth and so on. So, because that's how we grab the coffee when we were drinking it. All right. So this is a basic setup of what your table should look like. Also, another thing that's very important: when you put your place settings down, you don't want to put like one piece over here, one piece over here. Everything should be approximately 1 inch from the lip of the table. All right. So approximately 1 inch all the way across. All right. That's another thing that is very important as well. All right. So let's invite our guests. All right, we have Miss Olivo and Mr. Delcher.
Hello, sir. I would like your finest table, please. Finest table. Yes, this looks like your finest table.
Okay. All right,
Okay.
So welcome to Boon's Bistro. Here is your menu.
Thank you.
And here's your menu, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right, I'm going to give you a couple minutes to look over the menu. Would anyone like anything to drink? We have assorted juices, as you see on the menu, some coffee, bottled water, filtered water. What would you guys like?
I would like a glass of water, please.
Glass of water, okay.
And I would also like to have coffee.
Okay, and for you, sir?
I would also like water, but I have a question about the orange juice.
Yes, sir.
Is it fresh squeezed?
I'm sorry, sir, no it is not.
Okay, then I think I'm going to have coffee today.
Coffee? Okay. All right, I'll
Thank
be right
you.
back. Take a look at the menu. Okay, when we are serving guests, we always serve the woman first. If there is multiple women sitting at the table, you would serve the older woman out of respect. All right, that doesn't mean you have to ask how old they are. You just just serve the older woman out of respect to that individual. Okay. This is like we mentioned before, a fast casual restaurant. So in a booth setting like this, if someone else was sitting next to Miss Olivo, I would try to serve him or her first and then work my way down towards the end of the bench. All right. So when you pour your beverages, you pour from the right side.
Thank you.
Okay, and the woman always gets served first. If there's a couple like we have here, the woman always gets served first. You also take the woman's order first. That's just customary. Okay, and some coffee.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
I have half and half on the table, and there's also some sugar.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you very much.
All right. So when taking the order, all right, each person on your when you hand this in, a lot of things are done electronically now. When you hand this into the kitchen, all right, they don't need to know the numbers of the individuals, but Miss O would be seat number 1, Mr. Delcher would be at seat number 2. If there was 4 people at the table, it would be number 3 and number 4. All right. One thing you never want to do is when you come back with the food, you want to say, who ordered the eggs or who ordered this. I mean, you as a professional should know who ordered what, being the fact that there's only 2 individuals here. Even if there was 4, you should know exactly who ordered what and what specifications each person had. You don't go up to the table and say, okay, who had the eggs, who had this, because that is unprofessional. Okay, so Miss Olivo, did you get a chance to look at your menu?
I did, and I think I decided to have a short stack with eggs over medium.
Short stack, okay.
Yes, thank you.
And Mr. Delcher, what would you like?
I will have the 2 eggs over easy with white toast, and I will have home fries. Oh, and do you have sausage? I would like sausage,
I do have sausage
on the
as
side.
well. Okay, and sausage.
A side of sausage, please.
Very good, very good.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
This is such a lovely place.
Thank you.
You see
Very
the
nice.
candle in the center?
Very nice.
Very nice.
And beautiful
Okay.
lavender.
You're gonna have to stop for this. Okay, so here we have our meals. As you notice how I'm carrying the plates, do not rest your thumbs on the plates, please. Okay, they should be up in the air or not touching the side of the plate or touching the plate itself, and never touching the food. Okay, the lady always gets served first. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Notice how I serve. The main part of the meal is at 6 o'clock, right? If you think of it as a clock, this is 12, this is 3, 6, and 9. All right. The main part is at, so if this was a complete meal, a protein, starch, and a vegetable, the protein would be located at 6 o'clock. Okay. And Mr. Delcher, you had the hungry man's breakfast.
Thank you. Very lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're
sir.
welcome. All right. So
Compliments
again,
to the chef. Huh?
thank you. Thank you. All right, so they're going to enjoy their breakfast, and a couple of things we want to talk about. There's different types of styles of service. Okay, there's the fast casual, which we're doing now. There's fast food, obviously, where you walk up and there is no waiter or waitress. You just order your food. You wait for there. You pick it up and you go sit down. All right. There's more of a formal service. All right, where the length of the meal is longer. There's different courses and things like that. All right, so there's different types of service that but
I wasn't sure if this was going to be a 3-course
There's a
meal
buffet style
today.
service. No.
Of course.
No. I like how you wore a nice shirt today, though. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
SkillsUSA.
I saw that. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about when we come back about presenting the check. Also, one thing that you want to do, you don't want to hover over the people while they're eating, all right? They feel uncomfortable. You don't have to stand here while they're eating. Go walk away, do something else. You have other tables, hopefully, that you are going to be serving, all right? Don't watch them eat, but a good waiter or waitress should anticipate someone's needs, all right? Don't wait. Like if you see the water glass is half empty, you automatically want to just bring more water. Don't ask, would you like more water? Just automatically do it, all right? That's the mark of a good server. Okay.
Mr. Boone, why don't you mention, you didn't mention it earlier, but how you recognize, if you do have other tables, how do you recognize customers are ready to place their order if you have to walk away?
How are they ready to place their order?
Usually the menu is...
Yeah, usually the menu is folded in half. You can kind of tell by their eyes when they're starting to look around that, they are ready to order. But like Mr. Delcher is saying, when the menu is folded, I mean, even if let's say there's 5 people at the table and 4 of them have their menu closed, I would go over to that table and start taking the order, because, the longer you wait. Remember, the restaurant business is about, when Mr. Delcher, if this was a real restaurant, when Mr. Delcher and Ms. Olivo leave, we want to make sure we turn that table over as much as possible, all right? Those are called covers, okay? So the more covers that we have, the more people that sit at these 2 seats throughout the course of the breakfast or lunch or dinner, the more money the restaurant makes, the more money that I make as a server.
Right.
So that's other things you have to keep in mind, right? You don't want to rush them out the door, but you want to make sure that they're satisfied with the length of time that they had. They're satisfied with their food, and you give them enough time to eat their food. But you got to make sure that table they leave, the table gets reset, and then you are on to the next couple. All right. So we're going to give you guys a couple minutes to enjoy your food, and then we're going to talk about some other serving techniques. Okay, so as you see, both guests are done. This is usually when customers put their knives or forks on their plates. That is an indication that they are finished. One thing that I want to go back and talk about is when the only thing that is usually served from the right side is your beverage and soup. All right. In this case, obviously, we're not serving soup. All right. what I should have done previously is served Mr. Delcher from the left side. All right, when I pick up his plate or her plate, all right, in this case I'm just going to pick it up like this, all right, because Miss Olivo is in a booth. But in Mr. Delcher's case, I pick up from the right side, and I should have served his food from the left side. Okay, so just keep that in mind as well. Those are proper basic serving techniques. Like I said, you only serve the beverage and soup from the right. Food is served from the left. Dirty plates are picked up from the right side. Okay, so that was an indication that they're done when the utensils go on the table. In urban areas, they have the normal sales tax for New Jersey is 7%. In urban areas, it is 3.5%. So, Mr. Delcher, your total bill today, which was $14.75.
Okay.
Okay, I tacked on 52 cents for your because this, we're doing urban tax fee here. So that came to a total of $15.25.
Thank you.
All right, now the reason why I'm explaining this is because I don't want Mr. Delcher to stiff me on the tip. All right, so Mr. Delcher, what is the normal tip that you would give?
I usually give somewhere in the range of 15 to 20%.
Okay, let's base it on 20%. All right. So how would you?
Oh, you really want to have a nice tip then, no?
Well, no, that's usually normal, correct?
That's normal.
That's the
yes.
normal amount. Okay,
That's
put your money away. We're just.
I have my money ready.
Thank you.
I actually probably gonna pay by credit card. Huh?
I don't think.
Do you take Visa?
I only take cash.
Oh, okay. I don't think I got enough cash.
There's plenty of dishes over there.
All right.
All right. So Mr. Delcher's bill and Miss Olivo's bill came to $15.27. Okay. So how do you figure out? Let's explain this to the students. How do you figure out how to give 20% of $15.27?
Well, I usually start off by thinking about 10%.
Exactly right.
Which is
exactly.
Which is usually if I move the decimal place.
So here we have
if I move the decimal place to the left.
Right.
That gets me $1.52.
$1.52.
Which would be 10%,
Plus
and then I would double that. So
another $1.52, or you could do $1.52 times 2. All right. So a 20% tip on $15.27 is approximately $3.
$3. So.
$3. So if you left $3, that would be an adequate tip at 20% of the cost of the food. Okay, just to keep that in mind. All right. Before you present the guests to the check to the guests, would you like anything else? How was everything? Let's say Mr. Delcher or Miss Olivo had a complaint. All right. One of the things while you guys were away is I asked them if everything, how is everything? Okay, you should always come by once and say, how was your meal? How is everything? Is there anything else I can get you? Mr. Delcher had his water glass filled up while we were away, and at that point, then you would present them with the check. All right. Let's say Mr. Delcher and Miss Olivo wanted separate checks. They should have told me prior to them ordering that, please put this on separate checks. Okay, so keep that in mind as well. Before we wrap this up, this table service not only is important because we in class we spend a lot of time in the back of the house about cooking and not enough time going over top proper table service. This is one of the contests actually for SkillsUSA. It's a table service competition, and Mr. Delcher is the West Colwell SkillsUSA advisor. And why don't you tell us a little bit about the table service competition?
So in the SkillsUSA table service competition, you'll have to set a table, just as Mr. Boon did in the very beginning. Usually SkillsUSA will let you know and send you a picture of what kind of style the table should be set, because there's 4 different styles of table setting. And then they will also send me as a SkillsUSA advisor. They'll also send me what the menu is going to be, and you would have to learn the menu, especially the specials. And then you would basically go through the same procedures Mr. Boon did, greeting guests, having them sit down, asking them about beverages, taking their orders, serving them. Also within the service, for this competition, you'd also have to prepare some sort of dish table side, which is some common practices in certain different types of restaurants. One place, such as a brunch place, like Mr. Boon's Bistro might do omelets tableside to service. So he might have a little cart. He rolls up with a little burner and make an omelet right here for you at the table. Places, Mr. Boon and I have been to a Mexican restaurant where they make guacamole tableside, and usually, you know, they'll make the guacamole. They'll ask you if there's any ingredients you don't want in it, or they'll like commonly with guacamole, they'll ask if we want whether we want it spicy or not spicy. Right. So they'll add jalapenos if because I like it spicy, so I'll ask for jalapenos in it. So, you know, that's another common thing. I think this year there's been other times where, and what you have to make tableside will change every year. So one year a student might have to make guacamole, another year they might have to put together a Caesar salad tableside. And then it's, you know, what's that?
The napkin fold.
Oh, and there's another thing that Mr. Boon didn't do for our table setting was napkin folds, and you would have to learn, you would be working with a cloth napkin, and you would have to learn 3 different ways of folding that napkin. And there are many different styles of napkin folds. You can go online and find probably hundreds of ways people have folded napkins. It's almost like napkin origami, you know, some people. Mr. Boon and I have been to a restaurant where they folded the napkins at Christmas time into a Christmas tree shape. And that was very impressive. So there's all different types of ways that you could fold the napkin.
So as Mr. Delcher was saying, when you do the table service competition, whether it's making an omelet or doing the Caesar salad, you have 5 minutes to do that part of it. One of the things, you know, not only in regards to making an omelet or a salad, is the biggest difference between working in the back of the house and working in the front of the house is you have to have more of a personality. You have to be more outgoing. You know, a lot of times students prefer to be in the back, and then there are also students who prefer to be in the front, who are more outgoing, who maybe don't like to cook, and you know, where it's hot and sweaty, and you know, and the environment is totally different when you're in the front of the house as opposed to the back of the house. If you're more outgoing, if you like, you know, interaction with guests and things like that, then maybe being in the front of the house is a career that you could also choose in the restaurant industry. You know, when I went to culinary school, not every student that graduated with me in my class are still chefs. Some of those individuals, one of them you were talking about earlier, a friend of mine became a sommelier, which is an expert in wines. All right, so he went to the Culinary Institute of America, and yet he's still in the food service industry, but he's more in the front of the house aspect of service, which is totally different. You get dressed up, you know, you're not over the heat and all that stuff like that. I mean, you're one-on-one interaction with the guests, so that's totally different. Before we conclude, why don't you just take a little picture of, or show the video, the different types of service setups that there are.
Do you have anything else to add, Lisa, to everything?
Right. Yeah, we'll talk about that too.
And the leftovers.
Oh, the leftovers, yeah.
What do you do? What do you do if they want?
Yeah, good point. A couple other things we want to talk about before we conclude. I wanted to talk about when food is. Let's say these two individuals came and they had a basket of rolls on their on their table. You know, normally a lot of places you get served bread when you first come in, or you know, a basket of rolls. Or Miss Olivo had fruit left on her plate when she was done. All right, that product, that bread or that fruit has to be discarded. You cannot serve it to somebody else. All right, it could have been touched, could have been sneezed upon. It is unsanitary and it cannot be served to any other individual. One other thing before we conclude today, Ms. Olivo wanted to talk about what exactly is a PC, all right? So she's going to talk about that, and then Mr. Delcher is going to say a few words, and then we're going to wrap it up. Ms. Olivo?
So usually when we go to a restaurant, we have PC items at the table because this is Mr. Boon's Bistro. We have regular items here, but at a restaurant we would have small packages of jams, jellies, even butter, cream for our coffee, sugar, sometimes syrup as well. And so PC means portion control, so that helps us to maintain what is the appropriate amount that we're supposed to have per serving for each individual person. So that's all I wanted to share.
I have a question for Mr. Boon. As a server, what would the best practice be for if a customer wanted to take some of their leftovers? If, let's say I had leftovers on my plate, what would you do if they wanted to take it home? What would be the best practices as a server? Because I've seen some servers, they'll take my plate and go in the back with it and put it into a takeout container,
Yeah.
or they'll bring the takeout container here and have me do it, or they'll do it themselves here at my table. What do you think is the best practice?
I've seen
dealing with leftovers.
I've seen it both ways. As Mr. Delcher was mentioning, sometimes they'll give you a styrofoam. They call it a clamshell, a container, and they will have you do it. You know, and I guess you know. The more professional way to do it is to take the food, ask the individual whether he or she would like that food to take home, and give that to them in a container. I would take the food in the back, put it in a container, and then give it back to them immediately. At that point, when the customer leaves the restaurant, it becomes, let's say Mr. Delcher puts that food in his car and he gets sick. I mean, not that he gets sick. He puts that food in his car and he drives around for 2 hours and it's 80 degrees out today. Is the restaurant responsible for Mr. Delcher leaving it in his car and getting sick over that food?
No.
No, they are not. All right, but Mr. Delcher gets sick over that food, even though the food was purchased by that restaurant. Mr. Delcher now becomes responsible. But I would prefer that it would be, the leftovers get put in the back, in a container, and then given back to the, in a bag, to that person. All right. Mr. Delcher, since you don't have the proper funds, here is your apron.
Thank you.
Get busy.
I will get to work.
All right.
Over here.
And we will see everyone next week. I hope everyone has a good week. Make sure everybody stays safe and healthy. And that concludes our session for today.
Well, here we go. Jersey Fresh. We get started.
Thank you.